Hello everyone, I'm Solar Wolf. Welcome to Solar Crafting, and today we're talking Glencoe models. And we will get right to it in just a moment. Alright, so I have found with Glencoe models that the problems with these are a couple of real major issues. Excuse me while I keep my camera from shaking too much for you guys. But what's going on with Glencoe models is, unfortunately, they're not made very well. Their machines are off on their settings, and so sometimes the pieces don't fit. But their biggest problem, since most of their models do fit together relatively well, relatively easily, their major issue is that the plastic that they use, there's a mold release that gets absorbed by the plastic, making it really hard for anything to stick to them. So I'm going to show you a couple of methods that I have used with Glencoe models to get them to stick together. We're going to start with the Viking ship that was part of these two model sets. As you can see, we have both the Chinese junk and the Viking ship, but I'm just going to be using these parts to show you a couple of methods that can help you with super gluing these specific components as well as most other thermoplastics together. The first method is called the scoring method, and you can do this with any material that is like a sanding stick, or you can see I've got my sanding block there, which I use to score up the edges. So the first thing we want to do is remove it from its sprues, and you can already clearly see that the centerpiece there is not big enough to reach either of the two sides. Like, you can clearly see that it is not a very well built model. The only recommendation I could make with them for Glencoe itself would be that they would take care to adjust their machines, because they haven't been, obviously. This particular set was actually really poorly made, unfortunately for me, but it helps me to show you guys what I needed to. So while we clip these things off of the sprues, there are, again, two basic methods. There's the scoring method, which we're going over now, and then later on I'll show you the heat treating method, which utilizes a torch. But first we're going to go ahead and do the scoring method, and I've found that if you just score it along the edges that you're trying to super glue, as you can see I'm doing here, that you will actually rough up the surface enough for the super glue to stick. Now, this method is actually my favorite method. It works the best. This is literally your best method for plastics specifically from Glencoe, because they're, again, like I said, they're full of a mold release, which pretty much prevents anything from sticking to them, including paint and super glue and the like. And you can see me here scoring up the bottom portion of it so that this centerpiece will fit in, and we discover that it doesn't even fit at all, because you can see where it's supposed to sit. Now we're going to get some super glue, that way I can show you that it works, but the sides don't match up anyways. So this was one of my more major problems with this. I will be, with this Viking ship at the very least, I will be doing a diorama with it later on, so you'll see me complete it later on. We're just doing this for a quick test, so I can show you guys just how poorly they can be made and how the scoring method works to super glue them together. And you can see me here trying to fit it in and figure out which shape it's supposed to be in, and right off the bat, the very first issue I had is it didn't match up. You can clearly see it doesn't match up to the edging. Like, it's just not very well made, unfortunately, for this specific model, which is sad, because I really had hoped that it was going to be a better model. You can tell I'm getting super glue all over myself. But as you can see, it doesn't match up to the sides like it's supposed to, so none of it matches up. Unfortunately, this is something that a lot of us that make these models have been going through, so we're going to be pointing this out anytime we have to deal with Glencoe models. And I kept super gluing myself to the model because of, you know, reasons. Because it didn't match up, so there was no point in it. However, it is a good enough model for this Viking ship that I'll be able to use it, and I'm pretty certain I can use the other ship later on as well. But you can definitely tell that I had issues getting it together. I dropped the pieces. And the reason I had issues getting it put together in this case was because it didn't fit its own frame. And I couldn't figure out how to hold it very well. But the scoring method does work, as you'll note that I apply super glue to the tips on either side where I had scored it, and this actually ends up holding it very well, surprisingly enough. So that's a thing. But I did have to use super glue, get it straightened up, and then use super glue accelerator to, you know, get the super glue to stick faster. But other than that, it worked very, very well to get them together, and so I'll be able to use this model later on, which is really nice for me. You can tell here that I've got it off camera. The reason I have it off camera is because I'm currently spraying it down and trying to get it to hold into place. Once it's held into place, I bring it back and show you guys that the scoring method works. So that's nice and solid on there. It's not gonna pop away or pop free. You know, it's definitely stuck down. And so this is why I choose the scoring method. You can see with force it wasn't coming free. You know, there's a bit of gapping, but that happens. Unfortunately, plastic molds aren't perfect. And so unfortunately that's, they need to get their molds remade. They've been used a very long time. Glencoe models have been around since like the 60s or 50s, I believe. And so they've been around for a very long time. And so their machines are just old, and it's time to get some new molds, I think. Now we're going over the second method here, guys. The second method here is the heat treatment method. So we're going to clip it off of its sprues real quick. And then my God, my arms are, oh no, just kidding. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a torch and we're going to heat treat this. Now, like any normal person, first of all, I was wearing a respirator. You don't want plastic fumes, not to mention, you know, mold release fumes in your lungs. And then you want to keep your torch moving so that you don't burn the model, and you will absolutely melt your model if you don't. This is one of the more dangerous methods. It's also one I don't recommend until you've got years worth of experience dealing with models and plastics. I do recommend you use the scoring method as often as possible. It works better. It's just a better piece. And you can clearly see that I'm just doing this for showing you guys how heat treating doesn't always work. And unfortunately, in this case, heat treating did not work. I went to put the centerpiece in once I had it put together, and it just popped it right apart like it was nothing. And you know, I give these time enough to dry. So, and with super glue, it don't take very long for it to cure. So we put it together. And it seemed to stay together just fine until I went to put the centerpiece into it, and then it just popped right on apart. You see me hitting it here with some super glue accelerator just to try and get it to be a little bit more expeditious. And you can see it's glued together, and it's, you know, not too bad. It wasn't until I went to put the centerpiece in that it really popped apart. Because you see the centerpiece just sits right there, slips right into place, but it didn't fit. The centerpiece was too big and the outer edges were too small. I can actually shave it down and use it though, So I will be using this model as well later on. I just wanted to show you guys this real fast. And you can see it kind of slips in, but once it does, it wants to split the plastic. See there? So that's kind of the problem with heat treatment. It doesn't always work. And you can use a heat gun or a torch. Either one works fine. Just keep the flame moving, the heat moving. And as you can see with me messing with it, the piece won't fit in. It is too big. And so I'll have to shave it down to use it. And the moment it goes down to go into it, it just split the frame apart. See how it pops it apart like that? And so unfortunately heat treating doesn't always work, but the scoring method does. The scoring method that I showed you guys at the beginning of the video always works. Always. That's why I prefer that method and why I recommend it to so many people. Because as you can see, heat treatment doesn't always work. Anyhow, we will be using these two models later on. I will have some dioramas for them. I'm thinking of turning the Chinese junk into an airship build for you guys. So, and yeah, you can see here clearly that no matter how you put it together, it just wasn't going together. Anyhow, guys, I will be using these later on. Thank you so much for joining me today. You guys have been absolutely amazing. I love your faces, and we will see you in the next amazing video, guys. Alright, guys, we can call it good. And bye, guys.